Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
What's up, everybody, and welcome in to the Philly Sports Power Hour with Bill Colarulo. On this Thursday in December, we are only a few days away from Christmas. I haven't even started my shopping yet, man. I am slacking this year. But a lot to talk about on the Power Hour today. Seems like every single day there's more stuff to talk about with this Philadelphia Eagles team. Nick Sirianni had his press conference yesterday. Some of the things coming out of Sirianni's mouth yesterday were surprising, to say it mildly. Very surprising. But we also got to talk about our 76ers. Big win last night for the Sixers. Fly Guys back in action tonight. So I appreciate everybody checking in the Power Hour chat. I see you guys. We're streaming live on YouTube on the JAKIB Sports Network. We're also live on TikTok as well. In a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Eagles insider Dave Spadaro. So I know everybody's looking for some positivity with this Philadelphia Eagles team. I see you guys in the chat asking for some positivity. We got Steve Ike saying, hit us with some positivity, Bill. Come on, brother. Well, Dave Spadaro always brings the positivity, so he'll be joining us. Guys, if you're following along on TikTok, you'll have to shoot over to YouTube for the Dave Spadaro interview, and then I'll come back on TikTok after that. We do about a 20-minute interview with Dave. But I see all my crew checking in. Let me get a little roll call in the chat. Peckerwood checking in. Wine Niners Wine, as always, my man. Talking Fly Guys, love it. Mike Fittery doesn't want any Quez Watkins talk. I have to just give you a little Quez, Mike. Just a little, because I can't help myself. Brian Lippincott, Joel Embiid scored again. Jason A-Team checking in. Carlos Drew, Bobby Murphy, Twiz, WCBJJ, Eagles fan. Appreciating all my Power Hour crew who spend this hour with me. Love it. So let's talk about our 76ers. Let's start with something positive here on the Philly Sports Power Hour, because that was a big win by this 76ers team last night. If you guys haven't been paying attention to the NBA, Timberwolves are a good team. They were 20-5 coming in last night. Number one in the Western Conference. And Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and the 76ers win that game 127-113. And Joel Embiid puts up 51 points, 12 rebounds. And sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle. Tyrese Maxey puts up 35. So our big two accounts for 86 points last night. I said it yesterday. They are sucking me back in, man. I kept saying I wasn't going to care about the Sixers until the playoffs, but they're fun to watch. They are fun to watch, and I've said it before on this show. They are likable. There's no one on that team that has the me-first mentality that makes you want to turn it off. There's no James Hardens. There's no Ben Simmons. You got Joel Embiid dominating. You got Tyrese Maxey smiling ear to ear the whole game. And you got a bunch of role players, man. This team is deep. Marcus Morris Sr. last night in 25 minutes was a plus 23. Could this team do something? I'm getting my hopes up again. getting my hopes up again. But the Sixers are now 19-8, third in the East. And Joel Embiid, with dropping 51 and 12 last night, that was his 12th straight 30-point, 10-rebound game. He's only the third player in NBA history to get 12 straight games of 30-plus points, 10-plus rebounds. And the other two, Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Hasn't been done since 1972. So we are seeing history with some of the stuff Joel Embiid is doing. But I know none of this matters if they can't get out of the second round. But let's enjoy it right now because there's a long way to go before the playoffs. I'm sucked back in. I'm all in on the Sixers again. So I think you guys should be too. They're fun to watch. They really are. And I see Peckerwood in the chat saying he likes Oubre on this roster. I do too. And we usually are joined every Wednesday by Kayla Santiago. She's been saying it. She covers the Sixers for us, how much she loves Oubre and how much she loves the depth on this team. And I agree with her. So Sixers are back in action tomorrow night. Toronto Raptors. Should be another win for the Sixers. Raptors are 11-16. Then let's talk about our other good team in the city right now, our Philadelphia Flyers. They're back in action tonight against the Nashville Predators. Flyers have points in 9 straight games. Let's see if they can keep that going tonight. Is it possible that we may have NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs this summer in South Philadelphia? Oh, there's nothing better, man. Every other night having a different game to watch. You got the Sixers, then you got the Flyers. I love it. Absolutely love it. So that's the positivity for the other two teams. Then we got to talk about this Eagles team. And I know there's been a lot of negative comments. There's been a lot of negativity surrounding this Eagles team. And I've been guilty of it too. It's very easy to get frustrated. And there's a lot to talk about. Nick Sirianni had his press conference yesterday. There's a lot to break down with that. But some quick news. Landon Dickerson, we didn't get a chance to talk about this yesterday. Landon Dickerson has surgery. Looks like he's going to miss some time. Hopefully not much. Not sure what they're going to do. Hopefully Cam Jurgens will be healthy enough to play against the Giants so you're not replacing both of your guards. But we'll see what happens with Landon Dickerson. But before we get into Nick Sirianni's presser and we do talk a little bit of Quez Watkins, I want to try to keep the positivity going. So we're going to bring on Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, and hopefully he can help us be a little bit more positive about this 10-4 Eagles football team. What's up, Dave?
Bill, good morning. Merry Christmas to you and everyone when it gets here. I know it doesn't feel that way for some right now, but I mean, look, Bill, I've been through so many seasons, and there again ups and downs. There is no doubt this is a tough time for the Eagles, and that's part of the game. And you find out who makes the fight, who gets through it, and who doesn't. And that's kind of what this is all about right now. And you find out a lot about the coaching staff. You find out a lot about the leadership because it's easy to be a leader when things are going great. And this is when the true leaders step up when you've lost 3 straight games and the Wolves are howling. There are fans outside NovaCare this morning who are positive about the Eagles, and that was nice to see early in the morning. But, I mean, no doubt, look, the way to turn it around is to win a football game on Christmas against the New York Giants. I'm not looking down, as I thought Nick, I mean, I know he was, people were portraying him as testy. I think that he is intense right now, as everyone is, but he's right. You don't talk about what's going to happen down the line. You talk about how you can get better right now and win on Monday.
And talking about that game on Christmas Day, Eagles are 12-point favorites. So even with all this negativity, quote unquote, that's circling around this team, 3 straight losses, a 12-point favorite against Tommy DeVito and the New York Giants. So hopefully they can right the ship. But you mentioned you learn a lot about the coaches and the players when you go through some adversity like this. Is this the most adversity that Nick Sirianni has faced now in his 3-year tenure with the Philadelphia Eagles?
In a sense, yeah. I mean, it's different than in 2021, right? Because he was new to the team. The expectations from the outside were different than they are now. Uh, but I think back then he was trying to establish a foundation for his program, and the mocking that he took for the press conferences and the planting the seeds and the way that he approached practice and all that. And then you start off 2-5. There was certainly some adversity in terms of just capturing the locker room and making sure that those who want to be part of the program understand that this is the way Nick is going to do things. Nick stuck true to what he believes in. Season turned around. It's obviously different when you go from 10-1 after a Super Bowl season with Super Bowl expectations that everyone has and lose 3 straight games and lose control of that number 1 and now number 2 seed in the NFC playoff picture. So, I mean, I think there's always pressure. I don't think that the way that the team feels it inside the building, the NovaCare complex, it equates to what the fans, the media all kind of put on the team, because every day there's a ton of pressure. And even when team was winning, it wasn't winning the way it wanted to win. It hasn't put together that kind of game. And I think there's a lot of internal kind of like, hey, we got to get to where we know we can be. And they just haven't gotten there yet. So, I don't know. It could be more now because of the circumstances of the season. But I also know this, Bill. I mean, look, I'll give you a great example of a season. I remember in 2008, Eagles are bumping along, struggling. Was it the tie to the Baltimore Ravens? And I remember going in Andy Reid's office. Back then, we taped the Andy Reid TV show, and he got pissed off at me, and me, like Homer boy, and we had to obviously halt the taping on that and then reshoot the segment. And the question was, what can you do to get back into the playoff picture? And the idea was, hey, play better football. So they went out on Thanksgiving and they beat the Cardinals, and Brian Westbrook had 4 touchdowns, and the Eagles rallied, crazy, improbable ending of that regular season, got into the playoffs, and then got hot and advanced to the NFC Championship game and lost a game they should have won against the Arizona Cardinals and Kurt Warner. And so it can happen. Momentum is a real thing. Confidence is a real thing. And that's what the Eagles need right now. They need to get some momentum, and playing the Giants on Monday night has to be the start of that momentum.
That's a great analogy, Dave. I remember that 2008 season. I was working for the Eagles at the time, so I was on the sidelines, and I believe it came down to the last game of the year against Dallas to get into the playoffs.
Right, and we get to that point, to make that game even worth anything, like the Raiders had to win.
Yes.
Or something. Jeff Garcia had to win.
And that was the 1 o'clock game. That was the 1 o'clock game. We kicked off at 4 o'clock, and we're all kind of like waiting. And I remember thinking to myself, are the Eagles going to be able to just flip the switch and turn this on at 4 o'clock while they've all been waiting to see if the game even matters? And man, did they turn that switch on. Yeah. They dominated that game.
Yeah, the corridors of Lincoln Financial Field were packed with everybody watching the games, cheering on for what happened. And then the Eagles started the game and just, steamrolled the Dallas Cowboys, and then took that momentum, that one game momentum into, I guess it was Minnesota first and then New York, and then out to Arizona. So,
and they had that Cardinals game, Dave.
That had the Cardinals game on and just didn't handle it well at the end of the game and couldn't get off the field defensively against Kurt Warner.
Yeah, that one still hurts. Well, let me ask you, because I did a video on my Instagram, and for those who aren't following, at Legal Hands to the Face on Instagram, I did a video this morning, and basically what I asked was, are we seeing a delayed Super Bowl hangover with this team? And what I meant by it is I went back and looked, and everybody all offseason was concerned about this Super Bowl hangover, saying, hey, when you lose the Super Bowl, it's really hard to go back to a Super Bowl the following season. So I went and looked deeper at the numbers, and it's not that hard to make the playoffs. In fact, 70% of Super Bowl losers have made the playoffs. You can now include the Eagles in that 70%. But where it becomes difficult is only 8 Super Bowl losers have ever gone back to a Super Bowl. Only 3 have ever won it, and they were coached by Tom Landry, Don Shula, and Bill Belichick. So is what we are seeing right now some of the effects of how difficult it is to go back to a Super Bowl after losing the big game?
I mean, that would be an excuse, and I don't believe in excuses. The Eagles don't believe in excuses. I mean, this is a team that has just not played dominating football as we saw last year. So, right, last year's a separate thing. This is a team that has been living with very narrow margins in 2023. On Monday night, Drew Lock puts together an improbable touchdown drive. Narrow margin goes against the Philadelphia Eagles in that game. You know, a win on Monday night, and we're sitting here 11-3 and feeling a whole lot better, even though it wasn't a pretty win. Going to Seattle, a house of horrors. Pete Carroll, a coach who's had mastery over the Eagles. Had the Eagles been able to pull that one out, we wouldn't be talking about that. So no, I hear what you're saying. I think there is legitimacy to that. I don't think anybody with the Philadelphia Eagles would ever consider that, because that's an excuse. And the Eagles, you just don't make excuses, Bill. You don't make excuses for injuries. You don't make excuses for your schedule. You don't make excuses for coming back after a Super Bowl appearance. This is a new football season. This team has been rested. This team is prepared, and it has just fallen short here in the last 3 weeks.
You mentioned injuries, and that reminds me, I want to talk to you about a couple of players. And I know you don't have any injury information, but Landon Dickerson reported that he's going to probably miss this New York Giants game. Do you know what the plan is at guard? Is Cam Jurgens going to be back for this game? And if so, who's going to start at the left guard position?
Yeah, I don't know about Cam. So we'll see. The Eagles are back in the complex today, and they'll get on the practice field and start working through things. It will be, look, the backups then are, as we saw, Sua Opeta, Tyler Steen, Jack Driscoll can play inside as well. So there are some players who've had some experience this year who would be suitable replacements and capable replacements, and the players that the Eagles are confident in step up. If Jurgens can't go, certainly if Dickerson can't play on Monday night. Very unfortunate injury for Landon, and a really tough loss for the Eagles offensive line.
And they got the Giants on Christmas Day. How is the Giants defensive line this season going up against probably a banged up Eagles offensive line?
Yeah, I think when you consider going up against the Giants defense, you really don't think about a particular unit. You consider the scheme, because Wink Martindale really does like to blitz. He brings a ton of pressure. And I know that the dynamic young Kayvon Thibodeau is a really good player off the edge, and they'll move him inside and outside. He's a player that you have to watch. But I think against Martindale and against this with this defense, it's the way that Martindale brings the pressure and from where he brings the pressure. And the Eagles handled that beautifully last season. Again, really just we're looking at this weird schedule. First time we're seeing the Giants all season, and then we see them twice in 3 weeks. But you have to prepare for the scheme. But I think Eagles match up fine with their personnel, with what the Giants have. The Giants defense has played really hard this year. They've had some terrible offensive woes. They've gotten it, kind of normalized here with DeVito, and that's given the defense a chance to catch its breath a bit. But at times this year, it's been the Giants defense being the Giants offense, and they've done a really good job. So they're capable of taking over a football game if you let that blitz package win, and the Eagles just can't let that happen.
The crazy thing is Wink Martindale blitzes the second most in the entire NFL, only behind Brian Flores in Minnesota, but yet they have the second least amount of sacks. So I know a lot of fans say blitz, blitz, blitz. It's not necessarily the answer in today's NFL. But against Drew Lock, I was a little bit surprised that Matt Patricia blitzed as little as he did. According to Pro Football Focus, they only blitzed twice. It said 5% of the dropbacks. You think it'll be a similar strategy against Tommy DeVito, or do you expect the Eagles to bring a little bit more pressure?
Yeah, I mean, understand you're always blitzing against the offensive line and not against the quarterback. And so I think in Seattle, the Eagles felt that the 4-man pass rush and 5-man pass rush would win more often against the Seattle offensive line. And I feel like that'll be the same thing on Monday night. I mean, the Eagles have had great success against the New York pass protection team. And I think that doesn't, again, look, the unfortunate thing is that this is the defense is built on it was interesting. I'll kind of backtrack here. Nick talked about the Eagles offense yesterday, and he talked about the two things and we're all kind of trying to parse things out. Like, what's going on? Why is this wrong? Why is that wrong? And the two constants that he came up with was relative to this year and last year was the explosive plays are down and the turnovers are up for the offense. And those are the two most, and you have to consider the history of what Nick believes in. Those are the two most important statistics, other than obviously wins, losses, points on the board. Takeaways and X plays. And so the objective of the defense is to generate pressure with your 5-man pass rush and not give up the X plays. And unfortunately, in that last drive, Drew Lock had a couple of big X plays on third down. Both of them, one of them to Metcalf, that 34-yarder, and then the touchdown pass to Smith and Jigba. And otherwise, the defense pretty much did its job, but they're just not getting enough pressure, and they're not getting enough takeaways. And I think that Nick kind of alluded to it yesterday as well, talking about Matt Patricia, who will meet the media here at 12:30 today, and we'll get a little sense of what he believes in. There's a sense of unknown here. Like, what is he going to do that might be different in terms of play calls than what Sean did for the first, 3 quarters of the season here? And I think the idea is the Eagles need to limit the X plays. The Eagles need to get more pressure on the quarterback. Thus, they need to take the football away more, and they're just not doing that.
Eagles now on the season are a -6 turnover differential, which is tied for 23rd in the NFL. And as bad as the Giants have been at times, New York Giants are a +6, which is tied for 6th in the NFL. So every week winning the turnover battle is important, but definitely this week against the New York Giants.
Yeah, and Bill, we've heard a lot from the run the ball crowd, and the Eagles ran the ball for 178 on Monday night. The Eagles scored 17 points. And it's not just one thing. Yes, it's important to run the ball. It's also important to get chunk plays. They're missing on the X plays, right? And but to me, one thing that there's two stats that never go away that mean so much, and it's the giveaway takeaway ratio. That is so important. And last year the Eagles were, when Jalen got hurt, I think they were first in the league, and then he missed 2 games against Dallas and against the Saints, and that number went down. Or maybe it was down a little bit because Chicago, there were some turnovers. But
even still, they finished at a +8.
Yeah, they were great. And that makes a huge difference. And being -6 is not a good thing. That is not a winning formula. And so that how it changes, I don't know, Bill, but it has to change for this season to change in the right direction.
It's so surprising, too, because you talk about Nick Sirianni, and one of the things that he preaches is turnovers. I mean, even in the NovaCare complex, you guys have pictures of things about how to protect the football. And so that's a real big surprise. But sticking with the injuries, I was talking about Landon Dickerson. News that kind of got, with all the stuff that was going on with the defensive coaching changes and the 3 losses in a row, the 21-day practice window was activated for Avonte Maddox. Are we expecting Maddox to make it back this season?
I think you see where he's at. You open up the practice window. He's worked really hard in his rehab. You have hope. I don't know how much hope. You have you want to give him a chance. And clearly they feel like this is Dumb and Dumber. Are you saying there's a chance? Yeah, there's a chance. I don't know what percentage of a chance there is, but I think that's a really positive thing. The Eagles have missed Avonte tremendously. He's worked really hard. He's been on the sidelines for all the games, home and away. He's been a big part of the team. And so I don't know if that means going into the playoffs, going to the Super Bowl. I don't know if it's even it seems like there's a chance. And now there's a 21-day practice window. We'll see when he gets on the practice field. But clearly, it's a positive sign.
Definitely, because when Avonte Maddox is healthy, which unfortunately hasn't been as much as we've all hoped, one of the best slot corners in the NFL, no doubt about it. And while we're talking about that cornerback position, obviously some fans, we all have eyes. We saw James Bradbury, not his best game, but I did think that some of the young guys played pretty well. What did you see from Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks in that game against Seattle?
Yeah, I thought Keely was really impressive, and I thought he was good the week before as well. And he's getting more and more confident. He's learning his technique. He's physical. He's got a big, perfect prototype, large cornerback body. Can he turn and run against the elites? We'll see. Will he see? Look, the Eagles are going against Tommy DeVito here, and then Kyler Murray, and then Tommy DeVito. So I think it's a good testing ground for him. I think the Giants have good receivers. I think that I think he'll continue to earn more playing time. So I like where Kaylee Ringo is. I like that, Eli Ricks has battled through all season. And the thing with Eli is he can get handsy sometimes. And cornerback is so much about technique and, flipping your hips the right way. And, if you mess up your technique one teeny bit, you are losing that battle. And it's not necessarily the battle against the wide receiver, it's the battle against the quarterback and the precision that quarterbacks have at this level of putting the football in a very specific spot. So Eli has done a much better job being disciplined, better with his technique. The penalties are down. We saw quite a bit of them early in the season. He's a cool cat. He works really hard. He's talented. And when you have young cornerbacks, you've got to go through growing pains. And so we're going through the growing pains with these young guys. They're getting better. And we obviously look to the future, right? With young cornerbacks, you can't have enough good young cornerbacks. That's why the Eagles kept so many on this roster when the initial 53-man team was established. So it's really good to see late in the season contributions from both of those players.
And another younger cornerback that isn't going to contribute this season, but some fans forget, Eagles picked up Isaiah Rodgers this season when he's on the suspended list, but he could also play for this team next year.
You keep him coming. I mean, Pass rushers, cornerbacks, quarterbacks, those are the valuable, very difficult to find players in the NFL.
Another young guy I want to talk about, safety, Sidney Brown. You saw some good plays, some bad plays. Sometimes his aggressiveness gets him in trouble a little bit, but I think it's a lot easier to temper a guy down than try to ramp him up. What did you see from Sidney Brown on Sunday?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think the Eagles build him as kind of a bullet on the field, and that's what he is. He's all over the place. He's very energetic. He's versatile. He's got to be more secure in his tackling. He's missed a couple tackles, and no question about that. And he knows it. But getting better and better, playing a couple of different positions for the Eagles, and I like where he is progressing to, and I think that he'll be a player to contribute for the rest of the season and for years to come.
So it looks like, unfortunately, with the Eagles losing 3 straight, their chance at the 1 seed is going to be very, very difficult with the way the 49ers are playing. So now we turn our focus to, we want the NFC East. We want to be the 2 seed. I tried to dive in to the different scenarios with the standings, Dave. I don't know if you've looked at it, but it looks like now, if the Eagles win out and the Cowboys win out, you're going to have to go to like the 4th tiebreaker, because head-to-heads tied 1-1. Division records would both be 4-1. Conference records would both be 9-3. So now you have to look at strength of victory, which goes and looks at the opponents that they've beaten. Have you taken a look at this, Dave? It's like trying to figure out the presidential election on election night.
No, the hanging Chad. No, because I really want to just beat the Giants on Monday night, and I've long stopped looking down the line, and I'm not sure what it gets you other than frustration. I mean, I know it's fun to do.
Yeah,
I don't really get fun doing that, because I always go into every game thinking the Eagles are expecting and believing and knowing that the Eagles are going to win every game. So that's all I care about. And I know that, the Dolphins and the Cowboys have a big one on Sunday, and everybody will be watching that. The way, look, after 3 straight losses, man, the way everybody's, the questions and the panic and how upset everybody is, I just want to get a win on Christmas and make everybody feel glad again about this football team, build this football team up. And because, at the end of the day, Bill, I believe that if this Eagles team plays what I believe can be its best football, and you ask me, well, how do you believe this, Dave? Because we haven't seen it yet this season. Well, I would tell you that, like, the Dolphins game, the Eagles played really well, and the Rams game, the Eagles played really well. And, there were moments against the Cowboys in that Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles played with Buffalo after trailing at halftime was great. That if this team plays its best football, the Eagles can beat anybody, anywhere, and I don't care. And so that's all. I just want the Eagles to play great football and go into the next game at their best.
I hope so, Dave, because if they lose a 4th straight,
Don't
this
even,
city,
Bill. Don't
this
even.
city may
Don't
lose its
even
mind.
say it. Don't if me. Don't if me. Come on.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I'm going to try to be positive today. I told the
Are
viewers.
Bill? Are you having trouble being positive? You're a positive guy, but and I understand the gig you have. I mean, and it's your job to try to look for solutions, to try to figure out what's going on here. Are you having trouble being positive?
I am, and I am usually very positive with this team. And what I've said now for a few weeks, it wasn't just after the Niners game or after the Cowboys game or after the Seahawks game. My concerns with this team are the personnel on the defensive side of the football. And that's why I'd love to see, hey, maybe Avonte Maddox can come back. I was hoping to see Shaq Leonard be the guy he was in Indianapolis. I didn't think he would be. I was hoping he would be. So that's my concerns, is on the defensive side of the football. But to keep it positive, if the offense can start to click and fire on all cylinders, it may not matter what our defense does if the offense can dominate games. So let's hope that happens on Christmas Day. But before I let you out the door, big plans for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day? What do you got going on, Dave?
Well, my daughter's in town. She's with me right now. And my son comes into town on Friday. So we've got some stuff planned for. We're going to go see Beauty and the Beast at the Walnut Street Theater on Saturday as a family, and then go out to dinner as a big family that night. And then we're going to do a little Seven Fishes on Christmas Eve. And then we're going to go kick the Giants' butts on Christmas Day.
Yeah, hopefully Tommy DeVito has too much fish on Christmas Eve night with the Seven Fishes, shows up and gets absolutely dominated by.
You're loving that Tommy DeVito angle.
I love DeVito, man. Yeah. I love the whole thing, but I mean, he's starting to wear thin, especially his agent. At this point, look, it was funny when you wore the fedora the first night, and now you're kind of making a mockery of yourself, you know? But
but hey, guess what? It's selling, and isn't that what it's all about?
Well, it's a perfect town for it.
Yeah.
New York, North Jersey, the whole Italian thing. In
New
fact,
York.
he was at my buddy. You may see some stories today. DeVito was at a card shop yesterday. That was my college quarterback owns that card shop. They had DeVito there. His agent was there. And he said he did a real nice job with the kids. So
good. And what they pay him, Bill? Spill the tea. Spill the tea.
They paid him a ton. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
They paid him a ton. But Dave, I want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas.
You so much.
Hopefully next week.
I to you, and thanks for having me on, and thanks to you, everyone out there, for being great Eagles fans. Don't lose the love, don't lose the faith, and everybody have a happy and Merry Christmas. And one more thing, go Birds!
Thank you, Dave. Dave Spadaro, Eagles Insider, joining the show. And I see you guys in the chat. We bring Dave on because he does provide that positivity. I get it. He's an Eagles employee. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, I'm going to dive into the Nick Sirianni press conference. We're going to talk about it because some of the things were ridiculous that were said. So stay tuned, guys. Hit that like button. Hit that share button. We will be right back.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia Dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back in to the Philly Sports Power Hour on this Thursday in December, a few days away from Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Some good football games on Christmas Day. Not only do we have the Philadelphia Eagles and New York Giants, you got the Baltimore Ravens and San Francisco 49ers. That's a good one. Surprised to see the Niners are 5-point favorites in that game. Ravens got a good team, so that surprises me. I mean, obviously the 49ers are a very good team, but that one surprises me. And I see all you guys in the chat talking about Dave Spadaro. Yes, he is the Eagles insider. He works for the Philadelphia Eagles. But sometimes I like to have Dave on because he does provide some positivity for this team. And that's tough right now. I know none of us want to be positive. I'm the same way. It is very tough to be positive about this Eagles football team. It's very tough what we have seen the last few games. And really what we have seen all season long from that defense, what we've seen in the turnover department from Jalen Hurts and that offense. It has been tough to watch at times. And I asked this question to Dave. Is this the most adversity that Nick Sirianni has ever faced as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles? And I don't even think it's close. And this is where we're going to learn a lot about Nick Sirianni as a head coach. Because what we always hear about Nick Sirianni is how good he is with culture, how good he is as getting his players to relate, how good he is at battling adversity. Well, really, I went back and looked at the last 3 seasons. Nothing compares to the adversity they're facing right now. You look at 2021 when Nick Sirianni was hired. There were 0 expectations. 0. You talk about a head coach starting out with less expectations than Nick Sirianni started out with. I'm not sure there has ever been one. Doug Peterson had more expectations than Nick Sirianni because at least people knew who Doug Peterson was in this town. When it gets reported that the Philadelphia Eagles hired a guy named Nick Sirianni, the entire city said, who? Who the hell is Nick Sirianni? And then he comes in, he has that first press conference, which was a disaster, and goes into that season, no expectations. Jalen Hurts, no expectations. And they start the year 1-3. They then get to 3-6. They then get to 5-7. And then they run off 4 straight wins. Finish the season 9-8, make the playoffs. Lose that game, obviously, in the playoffs. But really, no adversity in 2021 because no one expected them to do anything. And then you look at last year. When the season started, there weren't a lot of Eagles fans who had the crazy expectations that that team was going to dominate the way they did. I thought they were going to be a good team, but I don't think any of us could have expected them to start that season 8-0, go 13-1 with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. But I think the little adversity that Nick Sirianni did face last year was when Jalen Hurts was hurt. And you had Gardner Minshew come in. They lose 2 straight games. Unfortunately, had to win the last game of the year to get that number 1 seed. But that wasn't a lot of adversity. And then you look at the playoff games. Until they got to the Super Bowl, those games were absolutely dominated by the Eagles. So you have a guy in Nick Sirianni who we keep hearing is all about culture. Well, this is the first time where I think that culture is really being put to the test. We haven't seen things like this under Nick Sirianni's regime. You have people leaking things to Derek Gunn here on the JAKIB Sports Network postgame show 2 weeks ago. Our offense is predictable. You have Jalen Hurts saying after the game, we need to be more committed. And then you have that press conference yesterday from Nick Sirianni where I don't know what the hell he was talking about at times in that press conference. And I get it. A head coach sometimes wants to try to protect his players, wants to try to protect the other coaches. But did you seriously defend that throw with 13 seconds left in the game against Seattle when you only needed 12 to 15 yards to get into a Jake Elliott field goal range, and you're going to defend that play call and that decision by Jalen Hurts by saying you could get a pass interference call? Is that really what we're trying to do now as an offense? Things have gotten so bad that all we're doing is playing for penalties? And I pray to God that Sirianni just meant that was a possibility on that play. But the way he started the answer to that question with you could get a pass interference just sounded horrible. That was a bad play call. It was a bad decision by Jalen Hurts. And you're going to lose credibility and respect if you throw out answers like we could have gotten a pass interference call. Because everyone who watched that game knows that was a bad decision. It was a bad play call. And I posted on my Instagram page yesterday, and I talked about it on this show yesterday. This is their philosophy. And it is going to be the demise of this football team. And they backed it up again. I said yesterday, go to my Instagram or here on TikTok, and you could see the video where I talked about the philosophy of this team, about always wanting the big play and how that's going to come back to haunt them. And you saw it against the Seattle Seahawks. They don't like to go on long, methodical drives. It works when they do it, but they don't like to do it. So they take these unnecessary shots. Quez Watkins, who we will talk about in a second, taking that shot to Quez Watkins with 8 minutes left, results in an interception. Throwing that deep ball to A.J. Brown with 13 seconds left when you only need 12 yards, results in an interception. But that's their mentality. That is their philosophy. And what did you hear Nick Sirianni say at his press conference? That the offense has been fine. The offense compares a lot to last year's offense, with the exception of big plays, which he calls explosive plays, and turnovers. Jason Kelsey was on a radio station yesterday talking about how we need to get more explosive plays. This is what they're preaching. And it's going to be the demise of this team. when we talk about it and you hear coaches talk about taking what the defense gives you, defenses are intentionally trying to take away the explosive play from this Eagles offense. Take what they're giving you. Go on those 15-play drives like you did to start the Seattle game. Dominate the time of possession. Because guess what? Newsflash. Your defense sucks. So what's the best way to help your defense? Keep them on the damn sidelines. And I know everyone wanted to blame Sean Desai. And if you follow me and you follow this show, you know that I have been saying for weeks that the problem wasn't Sean Desai, it's the personnel. I'm okay with them making the change. I don't think Sean Desai was a great defensive coordinator. But I said it over and over and over again. I don't think it matters who your defensive coordinator is when you have the personnel that you have on that field. And I pray that Nick Sirianni and Matt Patricia and Howie Roseman, because we know he's calling a lot of the shots, have the guts to say, we don't care how much money we're paying James Bradbury. We don't care how bad it's going to look that we made the mistake of bringing him back on that contract. We're going to start to limit his reps, and we're going to roll with the young guys. We're going to give Keely Ringo another opportunity. We're going to see what we have with Eli Ricks. And you heard me talk to Dave Spadaro. I'm hopeful. There's a chance Avonte Maddox may be able to make it back from injury. One of the best slot corners in the league. Guy just can't stay healthy. But if he comes back, maybe we could have some hope for that secondary. If you're able to put Maddox in the slot. Slay comes back from injury. Hopefully he's healthy. He plays okay on the outside. And then you could roll with Keely Ringo on the other side. I did like what they did with Matt Patricia against Seattle, running some big nickel with Sidney Brown in the game. But I think this Eagles organization has to be okay with accepting the fact that you made a mistake in bringing JB back on the contract you did and change things up. And I think we'll see this weekend what they're going to do. And this weekend, it's actually Monday, Christmas Day. We all get to sit down. Hopefully the Eagles don't ruin our Christmas. But it's that philosophy on offense of big plays that I take issue with. Because it's not helping your defense. And here's another news flash for Nick Sirianni when he talks about how the offense has been very similar with the exception of turnovers and a lack of explosive plays. Well, guess what happens when you try to force explosive plays? Turnovers. So you're asking the question of, well, why are turnovers up? Against Seattle, there were 2 turnovers in that game. Both of them came on Jalen Hurts trying to force an explosive play. So you can't say that our offense has been pretty much the same except for too many turnovers and too little explosive plays. You're creating turnovers by trying to force the explosive play. Frustrates the hell out of me. And I want to take a look because Nick Sirianni said that if you look at the numbers, the offense this year is pretty similar to the offense last year. So I just want to take a look at how accurate of a statement that is. So far this season, they're averaging 356 yards a game on offense. That's number 9 in the NFL. Last year, 389, which was number 3. I know 33 yards. No, 33 yards. Doing my math. 33 yards may not sound like a lot, but that's a good amount. When you're talking about the big picture of an entire season, 33 yards is a lot. You talk about points per game. Well, so far this year, 25.6 points per game, which is 7th in the NFL. Not horrible, but last year they averaged over 28 points per game. And when you're talking close to 3 points a game, that's a lot in the NFL. That's the difference between wins and losses a lot of the times. Passing yards, they're down. 228 this year compared to 241.5 last year. They were top 10 in the NFL last year. They're middle of the pack at 16 this year. But this is the one that really bothers me. Rushing yards. They have 128 rushing yards per game, which is number 8. Last year, 148, which was number 5. But those numbers are skewed because they had 2 games in there, week 2 and week 3, where they put up over 200 yards rushing, skewing those numbers. This offense doesn't want to run the football. They don't want long, methodical drives. And you've heard Nick Sirianni say it over and over again. He admits it. That's not the way they think you win football games. Red zone's down this year. 60% conversion rate this year compared to 68% last year. But turnovers are way up. Through 17 games last year, this offense only committed 19 turnovers. So far through 14 games, they've already committed 21 turnovers. So I disagree with Nick Sirianni that these numbers are similar to what they were last year. They're not. And if you're going to keep trying to force the big play, you're going to commit even more turnovers. Take what the defense is giving you. And I see you guys in the chat. Bo 1990 saying, no one cares about those numbers or analytics. Shane was the brains behind the offense last year. You know, Bo, I don't disagree with you. And I see Fat Dog saying losing Shane was a huge loss. Offense was elite with him. I don't disagree. You know, I think at times when we look back to 2017, when they won the Super Bowl and they lost Frank Reich, and then 2018, we all wanted to blame what we were seeing with the offense on Frank Reich leaving. I don't necessarily know if that was the case. But I do agree that Shane Steichen leaving was a huge loss for this Eagles offense. He was an excellent play caller. And the reason why I say I don't think it was the same thing when you look back to 2017 and 2018 is I think that Doug Peterson has proven to be a very good play caller in this league. It wasn't Frank Reich calling those plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. And you see what Dougie P is doing in Jacksonville. But when you look at this Eagles offense, going from Shane Steichen to Brian Johnson, definitely a massive drop-off. Would love if Shane Steichen was still here. But there's 3 games left. Hopefully more than 4, but we'll see. 3 games left in the season. And we need to see that offense to get going. But I want to talk about one more thing from that press conference yesterday. And I saw you guys in the chat saying we don't want to talk about Quez Watkins, but I have to talk about Quez Watkins. I have been saying since the summer that I wanted to see them upgrade the wide receiver 3 position, that I was over Quez Watkins. And I've given you guys the stats before about when A.J. Brown got here, you did expect to see Quez Watkins' production as far as catches and yards go down. But what you shouldn't see go down is his average yards per catch. You've heard Nick Sirianni say it over and over and over again, and he said it again at his press conference yesterday when asked if he still has faith in Quez about how much Quez's speed opens up the offense. I'm so sick and tired of hearing that because what we've seen year after year after year is not only that Quez Watkins can't make a big play, won't fight for the ball. We've seen his yards per catch drop significantly. So if this is a guy whose speed is supposed to be taking the lid off of a defense, you would not see his yards per catch continually drop season after season after season. And this year, Quez Watkins' average yards per reception is 7 yards. So I'm so sick and tired of hearing about Quez Watkins' speed. What does it matter if he's the fastest guy on the field if he can't make a damn play when called upon? And when they target Quez Watkins, disaster strikes, interceptions, fumbles, drop passes in the Super Bowl. And then you look at a guy like Olamide Zaccheaus, and Zaccheaus is not a Pro Bowl wide receiver. But I'm willing to take whatever we have right now over Quez Watkins. And you look at Olamide Zaccheaus, okay, maybe he's not as fast as Quez Watkins. And I gave you guys the 40-yard times a couple of weeks ago. But you know what Olamide Zaccheaus is averaging this year in yards per catch? 18 yards per catch. Quez Watkins, 7. So who gives a crap about Quez Watkins' speed when the guy can't make a damn play? At least when Olamide Zaccheaus is in the game, he's made plays when called upon. But you look at that Seattle game, Quez Watkins, 36 snaps, 52% of the offensive plays. They gave Olamide Zaccheaus 5. Zaccheaus was on the field for 5 offensive snaps compared to Quez Watkins' 36. What has Quez Watkins done this year to deserve those reps? What has he done? And if I have to hear Nick Sirianni say it one more damn time about Quez Watkins' speed, I don't care about his speed if the guy can't make a play. I'm sorry, guys. I told you I was going to try to stay positive today. I'm just so over the Quez Watkins talk. We've been saying it now for 2 years to get him off the damn field. Anyway, guys, appreciate you guys being here. I really do. Appreciate all of you guys on TikTok as well. We will be back here tomorrow, 10 o'clock, for our Football Friday. And we'll do our Football Friday, even though the Eagles game is on Monday. There will be no Power Hour on Monday. So we'll do a Football Friday show tomorrow. We'll take a look around the NFL, look at all the games this weekend. We got some Saturday games, Sunday games, Monday games. We'll take a look at those. We'll look at some spreads. I'll give you guys some picks. And we'll continue to break down this Eagles-Giants matchup. But I'm going to tell you right now, the Eagles better dominate this damn game. Because you look at the rosters, there is no reason why the New York Giants should be in this football game. This should be a dominant performance by the Philadelphia Eagles from start to finish. And if that doesn't happen, I'm not going to be happy, even if they win the game. And that's how I felt with the Seattle Seahawks. Even if the Eagles would have pulled out that win, even if they didn't let Drew Lock go 92 damn yards in a minute 24 seconds, I wasn't going to be happy with what I saw, especially from the Eagles offense putting up 17 points against a defense like Seattle's. So I better see a good performance, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow. But to keep it positive, guys, big win by the Sixers. Fly Guys looking to make it 10 straight with points. They got points in 9 straight games. So hopefully they could keep that going. But like we end every Philly Sports Power Hour with a little Today in Sports History. December 21st, 1891 was the first game of basketball with the rules created by James Naismith, played by 18 students in Springfield, Massachusetts. December 21st, 1891 was the very first game of basketball. Pretty cool. All right, guys, appreciate all of you. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Bill Colarulo, on Instagram at Legal Hands to the Face. I'll have more content coming the rest of today. And if you haven't checked out my interview with Ray Didinger yet, go to all your favorite podcast platforms at Legal Hands to the Face. And if you're feeling up to it, guys, leave a review on the podcast. Would really help me reach more Eagles fans. I'd really appreciate it. Guys, have a great day. We will be back here tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And as always, go Birds.
Go for the polls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.